Doesn't it sound like heaven to love your teen so well that they can't help themselves but love you back? Welcome to Pivot Parenting. I'm your host, Heather Frazier. And together, you and I are going to build more peace and joy so that your family looks forward to being together in the fun times and so that you are strong enough to overcome any obstacle that your family might face. This is where small weekly shifts that you implement create lasting change so that peace and happiness can truly abound in your home. Welcome, my friend, to Pivot Parenting. I'm excited to have you here. When you're thinking about your teen, are you worried, frustrated? Do you need them to change in order to feel better? Do you feel yourself bouncing between anger and apathy, just trying to find somewhere soft to land that makes sense, that lasts for more than 10 seconds? If this is at all relatable, you could be misunderstanding and misapplying love in your family. Welcome to my 12-episode series on love. We're going to put fear, frustration, and heartbreak behind us, and I'm going to teach you how to embrace love so well that your relationship with your kids, with yourself, with your spouse, with your neighbor, with your mom can't help but improve. You're going to want to begin at the beginning if this is your first episode in the series. Episode 310, 311, and 312 build the foundation in which I teach all of the other principles upon. So go back and listen to 310, 311, and 312 if you have yet to. And today we're talking about loving your teen even when they make it hard to. I'm going to break it down. I'm going to explain the psychology behind it, how to engage with them in connecting ways instead of ways that keep you up at night with regret. Let's dive right in. I want to first of all discuss why our kids do this, because it can be really frustrating and often it feels like a switch was flipped and we lost our child that was cute and sweet and loving and fun. And then the second part, what we can do about it and how to really love them when it is hard. Because our kids know the buttons to press to upset us. It's just not cool, but they know us too well. There are several different reasons why our kids get cold and prickly and unpleasant. This is definitely not an all-encompassing list, but this is what I see playing out most often for my clients. Number one, adolescents neurologically are going through massive brain growth. To get really scientific, we have neural blooms in our brain, and specifically in our feeling center of our brain. What that means is that tens of thousands of little dendrites are sprouting for the very first time. And they might find the tips of other dendrites, and then they myelinate if there are neurotransmitters, which can be feelings, that connect them, and then they become permanent neural pathways. Now, if these dendrites do not find other friends to myelinate with and create permanent pathways, then they are pruned. And so essentially what happens is their brain is going through growth spurts. It releases a lot of emotion, more than you and I experience and more than they did as a child, because it's trying to get permanent neural pathways going in their brain. And then when the growth spurt ends, the dendrites that did not form permanent connections dissipate. They disappear permanently. This means that your adolescents have a lot more emotions than they did as children a few years ago, and that they will have as an adult, as you have. They have more feelings. And so when we think they're being dramatic, they can't help it. Their brains are flooded with emotion and they don't know what to do with it. It can feel really scary because they have yet to experience this kind of intensity. They can feel just really agitated because it's really overstimulating, really overwhelming. And the only thing that they know how to do is act out. So they snap. They might seem overly dramatic, but I assure you it makes sense to them emotionally. They are not being overdramatic. It is, in fact, the end of the world, that there is no more cream cheese for their bagel or whatever it is. So that's the number one reason, is they have too many feelings. And it is really overwhelming, overstimulating, confusing, and scary. And so they are going to push against anything that they can, including you. Number two is that prickles, especially among the ladies, can be signs of depression. So if it feels like you're hugging a porcupine, ask some mental health questions to make sure that you're not missing anything. The third reason why they might be hard to love is they lack self-awareness, because we all feel justified in our feelings. It's funny, we'll be observing things out in the world with my kids, and they'll be like, why are they doing that? Or why did they just say that? Or why are they so rude? Or whatever. And I'll just say they feel justified in it. Don't we all feel justified in our annoyance? Or whatever it is that we are exhibiting. And then slap on adolescents' lack of self-awareness with that. I remember in junior high, my mom was a junior high teacher, and my brother and I, he's 2 years older than me, we were at the high school, and I was a freshman, and I think he was a senior. And we drove over to pick up my mom from the junior high, and we were waiting in her classroom for her to finish up. It was after school, so she just was putting away papers or whatever. And my brother called me the B word. Now, I'm not advocating that's ever okay. It's not okay. It really hurt me in the moment. Looking back at it now, as an adult, I wonder, you put two adolescents together and you have these things rubbing up against one another, right? He felt justified in calling me that. And I felt justified in thinking that he was wrong, even though I probably wasn't being very pleasant. Now, that doesn't justify bad behavior, but I can see how both of us felt completely justified in our bad behavior. This is what I'm talking about. We lack the self-awareness of putting ourselves in other people's positions. Literally, teenagers cannot meta-think or think outside themselves until later adolescence or even early adulthood. So considering other people's perspective, they might not even cognitively be capable of that. And then the fourth thing is there is a psychological phenomenon where our kids hate themselves. That's a common adolescent struggle. They think that they're stupid or ugly or gross or whatever. And they are trying to prove that they're right about their unlovability or lack of worthiness. If their parents can't stand them, if they can get their parents to be mean back, then their brain gets to be right, that they really are awful and unlovable because even their parent rejected them. And it is a sick kind of satisfaction, but I've seen it play out time and time again. It's really common in adolescence for self-loathing to enter the scene. And our brain always wants to be right, even to our own detriment. And so it will push against the people that they love. It will sabotage our success, our happiness, all of those different things so that it can be correct in how awful we are. It's really important that parents do not yield that to their child. And sometimes we can even make this funny or a cute game, like, I love you no matter what. And just call it as we see it. Like, you're so cute when you give me the stink eye. I remember the first time I did that to my daughter, who can shoot looks that kill. I smiled at her and I was like, oh, you're so sweet. Like, why are you giving me the stink eye? I love you. And immediately just like humor filled the room and she couldn't hold her nasty gaze. But I had to prove her wrong, that she couldn't push me away, that my love was in fact unconditional and it didn't matter how nasty she treated me. And guess what? She stopped doing that. It was amazing when it stopped. The fifth one is hot potato. This is a game that adolescents like to play. It coincides with too many emotions and feelings that they can't handle. An intensity, a hot potato, intense emotions, so they chuck their hot potato at us to catch. Oftentimes this plays out when they're really upset about something. Their coach benched them the whole game, or their friends excluded them and then posted about it, or their boyfriend broke up with them, and they will come to us so upset that we take on their upset, and then they feel better because we are now holding their hot potato. So that's another way that they can transfer their anger, their frustration to us to deal with. And then the sixth one is a phenomenon called soiling the nest. This is something very specific that adolescents do right before launching. If you have a kid that's getting ready to move out, they may soil the nest, especially if you have a decent relationship, because they can't leave the nest when it's so loving and perfect and cozy and delightful. They're going to pick fights because then it is easier to walk away. Then the hurt of leaving a beautiful home situation is alleviated. Imagine your teen walking into the room and your heart skips a beat because you're so excited to see them. Just connection, love, and peace flowing between you. You're confident that no matter their mood, it's going to be okay. This is the powerful skill set my clients gain. Book a free Discover Your Disconnection Pattern call with me, and I will outline your exact process to find the peace, connection, and confidence in your teen and their future you're wanting. Visit my website, heatherfraser.com, or click the link in the show notes. Remember, Fraser is spelled with a Z-I in the middle. I look forward to meeting and helping you. When we look at the reasons why our kids are acting so prickly, it makes sense. And usually it's not just one of the 6 things I highlighted for you, but it can be a combination at various times of day and throughout the week or month of all of these different things coming into play, or other things. Could also be just as simple as they're tired, hungry, stressed out, just like you and I. So we need to implement episodes 3, 10, 11, and 12. We need to create safety for ourselves and for them. We need to show love for ourselves, and this can look like not being a doormat and putting up boundaries and lovingly saying, you don't get to treat me like that. And most importantly, it is staying grounded. And by that, I mean you're not upset. Because when we are upset, then we cannot think creatively, and it's harder to access love. And we need to access love because we can do these things that I'm outlining for you. Number 1, we want to de-escalate the tension rather than mirror the tension back at them. Now, we all match each other's energy. And are we going to be the sheep or the shepherd is how I want you to look at this. Usually the strongest personality or the strongest emotion will set the tone of the room. We want that to be us. We do not want it to be an angry teenager. And I do not mean best them at their anger and be even more angry. I mean swallow their anger or hurt in love, in patience, in kindness. To love them so fiercely that their mood does not influence us, but we invite them to feel and commune in our love for them. Can be easy, like employing compassion, or humor, or food. Maybe a hug, maybe not touching them, even though we want to touch them. I love a good snuggle or hug. Sometimes my kids, that is not, in fact, what they want. And so it is loving for me to ask permission, to respect their boundaries. Practical ways to de-escalate and not mirror them. If their voice is getting loud and fast and more intense, we intentionally go the opposite direction. We speak more slowly. We speak more kindly. We take a breath before we respond. And just like they know our buttons, we know theirs. So if they're really upset, we don't want to come in with, "and I told you so." Or, "I'm sorry you feel that way, that's your problem to fix." Or anything judgmental, harsh, unkind, because that's meeting their energy in a slightly different flavor. We really want to be grounded in love and understanding. One of my favorite questions is, do you want to talk about it or do you just want to be comforted? And how can I best comfort you? Sometimes that might be turning on a song and having a dance party. Sometimes that might look like allowing them to cry on your shoulder or allowing them to walk out of the room and not engage with you and not following to their room and demand that they speak to you. It can be allowing them cool off time. I've had kids who want to sit and talk it out right then, and I have had kids who need time to decompress on their own, and then they're ready to talk about it. So it's more about meeting their need rather than expecting them to meet ours. Do not tell your child to calm down. That typically doesn't help. Do not tell them it's not a big deal or they're being dramatic. Again, that is laced with judgment and a need for you to get them to calm down rather than for them to feel seen, to feel loved and supported, accepted no matter what, and understood. Seems like you're really angry. Do you want to talk about it? Sometimes I'll tell my kid, yeah, we should go egg their house. Should we go egg their car when they're complaining about someone? And just bringing in that level of humor can be really helpful. Yeah, we should go slash their tires. No, my kids know I'm not actually going to go egg their house or slash their tires. But it can bring in that support of, yeah, you've been wronged and let's go get them back. And sometimes we just have to pair alongside our child in order for them to settle in, to actually say why they're hurt. Anger and prickliness, that is a more protective stance than vulnerability, than feeling hurt or rejected or misunderstood. And so it's really easy to default to anger because it feels more safe. It feels more protective. And so if we can meet them in that without adding to it, but just understanding it and seeing it for what it is, which is just a mechanism for them to feel safe. And we can help them feel safe by loving them and understanding them or seeking to understand them, and then not pushing them to do it in the way that we would like it done, but being comfortable with them doing it in a way that they're comfortable with. That is a great way for us to offer them safety. Number 2 is we do not want to be authoritarian or permissive. We want to be authoritative. If you think about an X and Y axis, where one is love and the other is rules and boundaries. Okay, so there's 4 different parenting styles. There's authoritarian, which is high on rules but low on love. There's permissive, which is low in rules and high on love. There's authoritative, which is high on both love and rules. And then there is neglectful, which is low on both. The outcome that has the worst statistically for children is the neglectful. The kids that have the best outcomes are the parents that are authoritative. So the most loving that we can be for our child is to be high on love and have rules and expectations and structure for our child. I want you to think of your favorite teachers or professors or bosses or managers. Typically, these people have the same characteristics in common. First and foremost, you knew that they cared for you, that they know your name, they know who you are, they know some things about you, and that you are their top priority, that they love and care for you. Then they have boundaries and expectations that they held you to, but not in a judgmental, I'm waiting for you to fail kind of way. And I believe in you. I know this is going to be a challenge, but I know you're up for the challenge. And I'm here to support you when you fail, which you will. And that's not a big deal because we're about learning and growth. And this is a safe place to do all of those things. You knew that they liked you and approved of you and respected you. You knew that you could do it in their eyes. There was no judgment. It was supportive and safe. Even though they might be asking a lot, they are there to help us grow. This is exactly how we want to approach our child. We want to have an authoritative parenting style. The ratio that I like is 1 correction, and that's not a snappy, rude correction, but an appropriate correction to every 10 to 20 positive interactions is about the ratio, because we all remember the ones that sting the most, or the comments in our biggest failures or vulnerabilities. That's what we hold on to as humans. All human brains are wired to do this. Imagine a scale where a corrective interaction weighs 10 pounds and the positive ones weigh a few ounces. We need a lot of those ounces to bring the scale to an even balance. This is what real love is. Not squishy people pleasing, but seeing our kids where they are, that they're good, and where they can step up and still be just as good. It's inviting with love and patience. This can sound like, I love you so much, and you were late, and I get that you're grumpy, that you're going to lose car privileges, and we knew that that's what the rule was, and so you don't get the car keys tonight, and I love you so much. What should we have for dinner? That's what that sounds like. No drama, just love. Gentle correction, pointing things out. Hey, I wonder if you're being so sour right now because you're hungry. Let's go get a snack. I just sliced up some apples. Or would you like a PBJ? Or just bringing it to them. This doesn't mean that they're going to be all of a sudden pleasant. They might not touch the food you bring them. They might just scowl at you when you offer them love. In fact, I would count on it if they are typically sour to you. But as you change your steps and your interactions, it is an invitation for them to return the kindness in time when they feel like it's not going to be used against them or flipped. Kids are pretty skeptical. And when we start doing things different, they might not trust that it's here to stay. So we need to be consistent. And when we mess up, which we will, We apologize and we own our bad behavior. And we don't say, well, if you just would have. If you would have just been nicer, I wouldn't have yelled. None of that business. That's not loving. That's blaming. We are the adult and we are in charge of our behavior, good and ill. And we're going to get it wrong sometimes and we're going to get it right sometimes. And we just need to own that. And this brings me to the third point that I want to make. And this is not, again, an all-inclusive, only way to do this kind of space, but it's a thinking space for you to consider other options and what might work. We have this overarching theme that we want to establish when our kids are being nasty. And that is that it is not about us. I remember coaching one mother with a particularly prickly teenage daughter, and sessions later, she just kept going back to this one statement that I had made that all of a sudden it flipped for her and she understood. And I said, you could be Mother Teresa and she would still treat you nasty. And that really hit home with this mom because she realized that she hadn't done anything wrong, that it wasn't her fault, and that her daughter's sour behavior was because of what her daughter was going through. It had nothing to do with her because she was the sweetest mom. She would have done anything and she had done everything for her kids. And she felt like such a failure because her daughter made it readily apparent she did not like mom. And that is such a wound. But when we can recognize, my friend, that it is not about us, that we could be the world's best mom, best human, and the teenager in our life would still be prickly, it is so much easier to create safety, to love ourselves, and to invite our child to grow and develop and be kinder. We want to be a detective to solve for what is happening with them. It is all about them. Just like your words and behaviors are all about you, even though we might blame our spouse or our neighbor or the person that just cut us off on the road or our teenager. It's actually not about them. It's about us thinking that we've been wronged. We want to allow our kid to be human because nobody is pleasant all of the time. They are entitled to be grumpy sometimes. We all get tired. We all get hungry. We all have bad days. We need to actually just teach them that they're good, even on their bad days, that they're worthy of love, that love is not conditional. And then we want to teach them coping strategies, how to de-escalate ourselves. And we do that by consistently offering those strategies to them. We want to teach them how to treat others when they're upset. This is simply life skills. This is simply being a good parent and equipping our child with what they will need for the rest of their life. They do not get to take their bad mood out on others. But simply saying, you don't get to talk to me like that, isn't enough. We need to tell them what to do instead. Meet their needs, recognizing when they're hungry, when they're tired, when they need a workout, when they're about to start their period, when all of these things are happening in their life that will continue to happen, normalizing it so they don't feel like they're broken, and then teaching them how to deal with it and that it's okay to feel sad and upset sometimes. Normalizing vulnerability, rejection, heartache, so that anger isn't the only go-to that feels safe in your home. And we do this by showing them how we are hurt sometimes when we're vulnerable or making ourselves vulnerable and normalizing that to them, sharing how we feel and loving them in ways that give them permission to practice those same healthy coping mechanisms. Because it is okay to feel upset. It is okay to be angry. It's okay to feel hurt. That is human, and we cannot avoid these things. But what we can do is decide how we behave from these feelings and how we choose to treat others, including ourselves. Give this a try. As always, please reach out if you need help implementing any of it. I'm so grateful that you're here with me, and we'll talk to you next week.